Hi, welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I'm Skot. Today, Dov Baron has blown my mind. He was sharing some things on this interview that you need to hear and that we all need to hear. We debunked a little bit of the perception and the idea that we have around resiliency, this idea of potential, why we kind of maybe think about these things a little bit wrong or just a different way to think about them. We talk about how his 10-year-old brain started working when he was still in England and he witnessed his mom watching the assassination or the news of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and what the impact was on him at that time. We talk about his journey through the globe and the impact that's had and his spiritual journey with different spiritual leaders all over the world and perspectives. I wanted this interview to go on for 3 hours, but it didn't. There are times in this interview when I am so engaged in what is being said that I forgot I was interviewing somebody and I had to figure out what I was going to say next. I kind of forgot that I was interviewing. I was kind of just there's an audience member eating popcorn and just enjoying what was going on that I forgot that I was supposed to be asking him questions. It was so good. I want to introduce you to Dov, top 30 global leadership guru 5 times by Inc. magazine and top leadership speaker twice, Inc. magazine. He has 2 podcasts. One is Leadership and Loyalty, which was a #1 podcast of Fortune 500 executives by Apple, and Curiosity Bites. Check those out. Look up Dov Baron if you can't find those. There's rumors that he might be merging them. Maybe not, but check that out. He's been on CEO World, CNN, Entrepreneur, Fox Magazine, not Fox Magazine, Fox News. Both of his books were Amazon bestsellers. He has spoken at the United Nations, Department of State, World Management Forum, United States Air Force, Servant Leadership Institute. All of these experiences have brought Dov to the show right now for you. I'm super excited to have him. I'm super excited for you to hear what comes out of his mouth. So here we go. Dov, this is a treat. I am grateful to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Honored to be here. Always looking forward to serving. And, if they only knew what was going on before we hit record. So we've already got some fun going on, kids, and we'll have some more.
Let's just throw this out there. If any of you want to YouTube Australian Wheaties spokesperson voice Dov Baron, I don't know.
Yeah. Or if you want a southern version of that, southern US version of that, or if you want a Glaswegian, we can do that too.
Yeah,
and even an Irishman, we can go there too.
We'll throw that in there. We'll throw that in there.
It'll be lovely. I'll get together and have a couple of pints. It'll be nice. We'll go down the pub tonight.
You've lived in enough places that I hope that you've been able to catch something. With these accents. That's amazing. Yeah, we've been cracking it up. So I'm grateful for you. From going from CEO World, CNN, Entrepreneur, Fox, the next logical step for you in your career was to be on my show. So
of course,
I appreciate you being here.
Well, I was just surprised that you weren't in front of those guys. I mean, come on.
I am too. Get out of the way.
Come on. This is your show. I can't believe that these people managed to get in before you did.
I know. You're just high demand. You're a high demand. You've got a story and we don't have enough time, 8 hours to go into your story. But give me the watered down version. It still needs to be impactful, just like the smooth kind of punchy version of your story, how you landed where you are today and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, I'll start at the beginning and I'll do the Reader's Digest version. So I was born in Northern England, grew up in abject poverty, crime, violence, addiction, all those lovely things, lots of abuse and all kinds of nonsense going on. At the age of 10 years old, I was massively impacted by the assassination of Martin Luther King. And that assassination made me realize there was a possibility to make a difference beyond one's own family or one's own little community. I walked in the living room and saw my mom crying, pointing at the TV set, saying he's dead. And I was like, who is? And here's this poor Jewish woman living in a ghetto crying, watching a black man I've never seen before, a black Christian man who, to a kid was on the other side of the world. And I was like really taken by, wow, there's this idea that somebody could impact somebody who lives so far away. And that really was the birthplace of my desire to have impact. As you know, I traveled the world to study with different spiritual masters. I studied Vedanta, which is Hindu philosophy, Buddhism, the Tao, Gnostic and Coptic Christianity, and Kabbalah, which is Jewish philosophy. And then got really, by the time I was about 22, 23, got really sick of all the spiritual people I met who couldn't get their poo in a pile. That's a euphemism, and you can work out what it is. They couldn't get it together to hold down a job, make any money, or hold a relationship. And I was already owned businesses by then, but I was struggling in other areas. So I started studying psychology, and I became a Jungian psychologist, had my own practice while running my other businesses, and loved Jungian psychology. Started a practice, had a practice, and got very sick of people moaning, complaining, sitting on the couch and wanting me to just listen to their shit. That didn't appeal to me either. So I started studying what was then called in the early 80s, the psychology of excellence. Today that's called leadership. And I was working with people who were, or studying with people who were athletes, entertainers, CEOs, multi-generational wealth. I just wanted to understand. And what I found was a lot of soulless individuals. So that wasn't the answer either. Then in 82, 83, I stumbled into very early days of neuroscience, looking at cortisol, looking at what passes the blood-brain barrier, how does it pass the blood-brain barrier, and the process of addiction. That also made me look into, again, stumbled into quantum physics, started studying quantum physics, particularly U. Everett III's many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. That was my first introduction. Fell in love with that. And then started to put all that together of how could this all possibly come together. I'm a polymath, obviously. I study many different things. And the question that bugged me from being a kid was my aunt and my uncle, my mom's siblings, were very smart. My aunt was very beautiful, very elegant, living in a ghetto, wearing Chanel blouses. And she was beautiful. And every now and then she would show up with a new boyfriend and bragging about how wonderful he was. And I, as a kid of 10 or 11 years old, could work out, this is the same man with a new face. He's going to end up beating you and taking your money. And they did. And I became fascinated by this question. Why do smart people do dumb things even when they know they're dumb? And that's what drove me into the psychology and the metaphysical understanding and all those things. And so as a result of all the things I studied, I began to develop understanding of personal emotional resonance fields. So these are quantum fields, and understanding those in the context of something called the emotional source code. Understanding that, I started to develop that. And then in June 1990, I was very successful, traveling the world, studying, teaching rather. I was on major media in the 1990s. TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, etc. And then in June 1990, I was a free climber. I was an adrenaline junkie and fell 120 feet, got smashed to pieces while free climbing, landed on my face, died 5 times, and had approximately 10 reconstructive surgeries, and fell into a very deep, dark depression that I was in complete denial of, because I was a ghetto kid with a background in psychology. I'd boxed, I'd done martial arts, I'd owned businesses on 3 continents. You can't put me down. There's no way. So when people say, how you doing? With my jaw wired closed, I'd say, I'm great. I'm coming back. I was full of shit. I wasn't great. I was darkly depressed. And I had to confront that. There was an incident that allowed me to confront that. And I spent the next 9 months gestating in that pain. until I realized that I was not living the very things I was teaching, and that was what was needed. And so that was when the emotional source code got turned in, and I started to look at it from my point of view. Now, you should know at that point, I'd already been in therapy and done development and studied, looked at myself for almost 15 years. And if anybody had asked me, are you self-knowledgeable and are you enlightened? I might have egoically said yes. But there was a lot more to do, and there was a lot more depth to do. And as a result of that work, that's led me into working with these athletes, entertainers, political figures, etc., very high-profile individuals who have gotten to the place in their life where they want to make a massive difference. And they have made a massive difference, but in a way that's not fulfilling to them. So they're like, I've got the house, I've got the car, I've got the yacht, I've got a house on the island, I've got this or that or the other thing. Why is something missing? What's missing, Dov? They've gone to therapy, they've gone to coaching. What I do is not those things. It's far deeper than that. And from that, they find what we call the why of their why. It's the deepest, it's a spiritual but non-religious purpose that drives their life. And if we don't understand what drives it, it will drive us negatively if it doesn't drive us positively. So that's the long version of a short story, of a very, very long story.
Unreal, man. Well, I will say, whoever your face doctor was did an amazing job. I mean, your face looked, seriously. I mean, you can't even tell. I mean, you've done.
When I first fell, it was a mess, and they put me together very badly. My cheekbones were completely collapsed. My roof of my mouth was crossed over. So they thought we meant like a deaf accent, and I was very poorly put together, and you can see some pictures of that online. But it took a while, and they put me back together. But that's a long, long time ago. That's it's more than 30 years ago. Yeah,
it's been a while. Coming back from that, I mean, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, has got to take a toll on somebody. But it also speaks to the kind of person that you are, and the kind of person that I think we can look to and say, you know what, we all have our moments. We all have our falls from 120 feet, maybe not literally, but we all have them. And it is we're going to have some reconstruction done at times. We're going to have to figure out what it's going to be like to move on from that period of time and that period of life. And how do we bounce back? How do we find out what's in us in order to grow and keep moving forward?
Somewhat of a trap in what you're saying, Scott. And if you don't mind, I'm going to just push back a little bit on that.
Oh, please push back.
And it's not about resilience, and that's part of the lie we tell ourselves. One of my sayings is, if you living by the statement, get knocked down 7, get up 8, you're an idiot. Get knocked down once, stay down, work out why the hell you're on your ass. That's far more important. And so it's not about resilience in the way that we know it. You suggested the idea that I'm different than others, and I don't know that that's true in any other way than I was willing, became willing. No, I was not willing. I became willing to say, and this is what I tell people all the time. You said it. We all have falls. It's a heart attack. It's a divorce. It's a diagnosis. It's a loss of a loved one. It's a bankruptcy. There's all kinds of ways to fall. The question is, what is the fall waking you up from? So what have you been sleepwalking through? Thinking it's your life. And what is it there to wake you up to? How can you serve in a greater way? And you can't do that while clinging onto your ego. And you go, I'm very good. I've got my ego. No, you know what? I would have said the same. But here's what, if you want to understand your ego's not bad. Your ego's good. Everybody needs an ego to survive. But what you've got to look at is the ego identity. Where do you need to be right? Every time you go into battle to be right, your ego's running the show. So as opposed to just saying, let's get curious. All those religions I studied, all those philosophies I studied, and people ask me to this day, what's your religion? I tell them, my religion is curiosity. I'm deeply curious. I want to remain curious because it allows me to be open-minded. It allows me to learn. It allows me to grow. And it allows me to love. It allows me to have compassion and empathy. So it's not about getting knocked down and getting up 8. It's about getting knocked down and realizing you've been knocked down for a reason. Not because you're bad, but because you're off track. You're off track. It's there to wake you up from, and it's there to wake you up to. The question is, will you examine that? As you listen to me right now, as you play this back, as you even consider it a couple of weeks from now, what is it there to wake you up from, and what is it there to wake you up to? The devastation of the situation is merely that. It's an alarm clock.
Can we talk about another misconception or something that maybe you could spin for us too a little bit? Mm-hmm. Is this idea of potential?
Oh yeah.
How about that one? I know you talk about this. I want everybody else to hear what you have to say.
I talk about this in the context of my corporate work and even in my private work. And people will say, I know I have so much more potential than I'm living. Or, we keep this person on because they've got great potential. And I'm like, potential is a big, fat effing lie. Potential means nothing. When I was at school, by the time I was 10 years old, my art was in galleries. Everybody thought I had the potential to be an artist, including me. I'm not painting or sculpting anymore. I'm still an artist, but not in that form. So potential doesn't matter. What matters is, are you stepping into that? Because if I see the potential in you and you don't want it, it doesn't matter. It's a big fat lie. It's me manipulating you into something. So potential, as in I'm seeing potential in another, is I'm now going to manipulate you into the vision I have of you. As opposed to, what is your potential? What is it that you hunger for? What is it that you deeply desire? What is the difference you want to make? How do you want to make that? And what resources do you have within you that you can bring to that? So if you're keeping somebody employed because of their potential, you are stealing from your organization. And you're actually stealing from that individual. The question is not whether somebody has potential. The question is whether what they want as their potential. I had no idea when I was an artist that I had potential to be a speaker around the world. I didn't know that. It was beyond my imagining. So the truth of who you are is far beyond the potential that you can imagine. And we as leaders have a responsibility. And the responsibility is to see in others what they cannot see in themselves and to present it to them and see if they are emotionally and soulfully pulled to that, but to in no way direct it. My job is to hold it for you until you're strong enough to take it on your own shoulders. And then when you can do that, that's great. But my job is not to say, and go here with it. No. That's manipulation. I'm not interested. I want to serve your soul, not your ego.
Let me ask you this then. I'm holding it. Mm-hmm. I see how great it is. Mm-hmm. And I see the gift it could be to the world.
Is it yours or someone else's you're talking about?
Well, I'm going to say it's mine for now. But I will say that based on my knowledge of you, based on the understanding I have of you, based on whatever's going on, I feel this is something you would like. I feel this is something you would go into. I feel like this is something you've mentioned to me in the past, maybe not in these words that I'm holding in my hands, but you've said something. And as a leader of my family, as a leader of my community, as a leader of my team, my business,
and hopefully how do I of yourself
and myself? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. How do I lead you to the fountain? I can't make you take it, but isn't it my job to lead you here in some way?
So my job is not to lead you to it. My job is to elicit from you what it is that there's two sides to it, and it's everything is yin and yang in the universe. So my job is to elicit from you the what it could mean in the world and what it will cost you not to go there. So the truth of the matter is that most people will never explore their own deep greatness. And the reason they won't is because they're so afraid of losing their identity. And so your deep greatness requires you to abandon your identity. And not entirely, but the identity you've held. So if I say, who are you? I remember one of my great teachers, Pathasade, doing this with me. Annoying the hell out of me, but it was a great exercise. And he just, he said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Dov. No, that's your name. Who are you? Oh, I'm a man. No, that's your gender. I'm a human. No, that's your species. And we went on this whole thing and realizing that I had no clue who I was beyond the labels. And so the problem with it is the more successful we become, the more we stack the labels. And so the cost now is tearing off the labels is, ooh, that could cost me this, that could cost me that could cost me my self-esteem, that could cost me my credibility in the world. Yes. All right, let's say all that's possible. Now we go to the other side. What will it cost you not to go there? Well, nothing is the answer because I already have all these things. You're absolutely right. It won't cost you the things you have. What will it cost you not to go there? What do you mean? Simple question. Who will suffer if you die with this inside of you? Who will suffer if you don't write that book, Skot? Who's going to suffer? On a general level, doesn't really matter. There's enough books out there. But now I want you to imagine there's somebody going to pick up that book by Skot. It's going to change their life. It's not the book. It arrived in the moment they needed it. It arrived at that transformational moment where their soul was crying out for one sentence of somebody to validate this possibility. And they read your book and went, holy crap. That's it. That's the thing. And you go, well, I'll never know that person. Great. Absolutely great. What do you mean? My purpose in life is to impact me, Dov. The purpose of my life is to impact the lives of the people whose names I do not know and whose names I will never know and who will never know my name. If my purpose is about me and my name and my reputation, then it's not my purpose, it's my ego. My purpose is to impact the lives of those who will never know my name so that they can live the life that they came to here to live and they can serve in the way that they came here to serve. And you don't have to be a billionaire. You don't have to be a political leader. Try being a parent. Try being a decent partner to your partner in life. Try that. How often do you thank your partner for being with you? I thank my partner every day. Every day. 25 years married to the same woman. Every day. I thank her every day. How often do I thank her for the meals she cooks? Every day. She has no obligation to cook for me. She says, but if I didn't cook, you wouldn't eat. Probably. But that's not the point. I'm grateful for that. How much time do you spend acknowledging the gifts in your life? Take the time for that. How many lives are changed by that? I went and got a haircut, and the woman standing next to us was doing eyebrows. And she says, oh, I met your wife. And I was telling her about my wife and she, and how amazing she is and blah, blah, blah. She goes, yeah, she seemed a lovely lady. The next time my wife went in, she went in to get her eyebrows done by this lady. And she goes, oh my God, your husband loves you so much. And my wife says, yeah, I know. He tells me every day. And she goes, oh, that's such a treasure. Is it? Really? Or is that just the way it should be? Is that actually how we should treat our people? How often do you walk around your organization and actually have a conversation with the people who work for you, find out who they are, and actually ask them and give a shit and let them know that you actually appreciate them being here, even though they could be somewhere else? Even though you're going through hard times in the organization, even though they could find a better job. Like, step into your own deep greatness does not mean your egoic self. He means the greater part of you. Step into service. So that potential, quote unquote, within you is worth nothing. It's a waste of time unless you enact it into the world. And for me to show you how to enact it, I have to elicit from you how you've built the identity that's serving your ego. And it's not bad. It's allowed you to survive. But I also need to elicit from you the cost of not stepping into your deep greatness, owning the emotional source code of what drives you to make a difference in the world. Because you're trying to do it. You're just trying to do it under the guise of your own ego. And that's not, when I say you, please understand, as you're listening to this, yes, I am speaking to you, but I'm speaking to me because I'm not better than you. I need the reminder every day myself. I'm speaking to every one of us as humanity who is living in this world where we are driven for success and significance and applause and all the other bullshit that ultimately won't matter on your deathbed. Preach! I feel a healing coming on.
You are blessed. Yeah, I was waiting for that Tennessee accent to come out.
I feel a healing coming on.
I feel it coming. This is, you've said so many things. I think that when I think about you said service twice. Mm-hmm. When I picked that up, and I will tell you that you've spoken about ego, you've spoken about service, you've spoken about recognition of others, and I will tell you a quick personal thing. So my older brother was addicted, drugs and alcohol. He was my professional homeless brother. That's what he did for mm-hmm. decades, living on the streets, and went to 12-step programs, did the AA thing, and worked through that. And it never really hit with him. You know what hit him? You know what finally turned him around to where now he's a thriving, married, amazing. He's always been amazing, but like feeling amazing, being able to now do for others. It was service. And the whole program that he ended up going through was twice a week. They made meals and they went out to the streets and they served the people and then brought them back and served them. And it was all in the name of service. Right. Because addiction is a selfish act. Addiction's all about me. And when I can flip that around, I think that maybe we aren't addicted to drugs and alcohol, but there's other addictions in our mind that kind of hold us back from serving others or cause us to focus maybe on ourselves a little too much. That act of service is what finally took the focus off him and was able to do for others. And that is ultimately and he's still doing it. Now he's created his own ministry and he's doing that. And it's impacting so many people
and that's a powerful and important story that needs to be heard. And I want to add to it by saying, is that okay?
Please. Yeah, go.
I want to add to that by saying this. Listen, I live in Vancouver, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. About 10 minutes walk from me going east is one of the largest homeless populations in North America. Vancouver is an incredibly wealthy city, right? You can't buy an apartment. 550 square feet is about $1 million. So, that gives you an idea. That's part of the reason there's so much homelessness. And you'll see these people stumbling across Hastings Street, stoned out of their brain or drunk as a skunk or whatever it might be. And it's very easy to judge them. But have you sat in the alleys with them? I have. Have you talked to them? I have. Here's the thing you need to understand. When I told you I looked at neuroscience and spent a lot of time in that, part of my understanding was it was an addiction. I was fascinated by addiction, fascinated by why do smart people do dumb things even though they know it's dumb? It was part of that same question. And here's what I know, neuroscientifically. As you listen to this, as you're thinking in your mind right now about someone you saw, past, or is in your family who you judge as a drug addict, I want you to consider this. Every human being, you and me and your minister at church and all the other people, we're all addicts. Every single one of us. The opioid receptors exist in all of our brains. Well, they don't have the willpower that I have. Bullshit. It's got nothing to do with willpower. I'm calling that out right now in no uncertain terms. Why do you have opioid receptors in your brain? Think about that. You have them. Just like the drug addict does. Why do you have them? If you believe in God and God created you, why did God give you opioid receptors? Did God go, oh, let's see how this will roll. Let's see if we can roll a double six on this and see which one comes out an addict. No. Opioid receptors are there to help you with your pain. Now you have to go, oh, okay, a minute. Let's look at that. Here's the answer. Everyone you meet is in pain. Everyone. Don't care how happy or wonderful they seem, they're in pain. There's some wonderful interviews with the Dalai Lama talking about his pain, right? This man who seems to be the picture of enlightenment talking about his pain. Jesus was in pain when he flipped over the tables outside of the temple. Moses was in pain when he killed an Egyptian. We're all in pain and we're all looking to alleviate that pain, feel better. And we're all doing things to feel better. Now, how do we feel better? Well, we feel better sometimes by ingesting things that will change our neurochemistry, i.e. heroin, cocaine, whatever it might be. But here's the thing. The best pharmacy in the world is between your ears. That's the most powerful pharmacy in the world. You create every drug on the market you can create and do create. So here's the thing. How do you get your hit? Well, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. No. Do you volunteer 40 hours a week at the church? Yeah. Is that your addiction? No. That's a good thing. I didn't say it wasn't a good thing. I'm saying, does it alleviate your pain? Does it stop you from looking at what you need to look at that you need to heal? But I'm serving in the soup kitchens. Is that easing your pain? I'm not saying easing your pain is wrong, but it allows you to have compassion and empathy and curiosity about another human being. They simply took a different path than you did. And the way you're easing your pain may get social applause and theirs may get social condemnment. But the bottom line is every human being you meet is in pain and we're all trying to alleviate our pain. So have some bloody compassion. And that will give you the room to look at your own ego and go, okay, how do I hide? Because I'll tell you something, I work with these amazingly powerful people, and guess what their number one drug is? Success. Their number one drug is success. They feel better because they get to the $1 million, they get to the $1 billion. But there's a guy I know very well who talks about getting this multi-billion-dollar check, like deposited in his bank account, because he sold his company. And he talks about how he fully expected to be ecstatic and felt nothing. Now, that's not always the case, but even when it's not the case, it doesn't last. It's like, I thought it would last. It doesn't last. Think about the new car you bought. Wasn't it pretty damn exciting? It was wonderful. Wow, I got that car. I really wanted that car. I got that car. It was great. 3 weeks later, what was it? It was a mode of transport. You might have showed it off to your friends a bit more, but it was a mode of transport. You didn't even think about it. But before you had it, it was going to be everything. What's your heroin? What's your cocaine? What's your drug of choice to ease your pain? And if your drug of choice is serving in the world, great. But don't think you're better than the people you're serving. You're not. I'm not better than anybody I serve. I have to tame my ego every turn, just like everybody else.
What's all this have to do with this idea of the emotional source code?
So the emotional source code, as I said, came out of all that work in all the different polymathic areas. And so people go into therapy or coaching or whatever it might be, and they say, I have this shitty behavior and I want to change it. It's damaging my marriage, it's damaging my business, damaging my leadership, whatever it might be. I go, okay, can you help me with the behavior? I definitely can help you with the behavior. Oh, great. Can we start? No. And they go, why? Because it won't matter. What do you mean? If you're doing the behavior and you change the behavior, it won't stick. Oh. Why not? Because behavior is an outcome. It's not a root. Oh, okay. Well, what do we have to change? Well, what are the beliefs and values that you have that support this behavior, even though you know it's a crappy behavior? Oh, yeah, I never thought about that. Okay, good. So let's examine the beliefs. So we were examining the beliefs and the values that you've adopted that are not yours, that you think are yours, but you've been living in the cult of whatever it is, maybe the cult of your own family, or the cult of being American, or the cult of being Brit, or the cult of being whatever it is. And you've adopted a certain set of beliefs and values from that. All right. So if I change those, can you help me change those? I can. Will that stick? Nope. Will it stick better than change of behavior? Sure. But it won't stick. You'll always be questioning it. And they go, oh, well then what is it? So we've gone from top level, 5, behavior, 4, values, beliefs, paradigms. Paradigm is a set of beliefs that come together. Okay. What's below that? Identity. Oh. But let's just leave identity where it is right now because it's the center of the wheel. And let's jump down to the bottom level, which is the emotional source code itself. Well, what is that, Dov? The emotional source code is the emotional marinade that you soaked in as a child in your formative years. It's longer than that, but those are the dominant ones. It is your emotional DNA. And up until the 90s, we had this idea of the primacy of DNA, which meant that you are your DNA. That's who you are, right? You know, if your dad was a mass murderer and you've got that, you know, that's in your DNA. Well, that's not actually true. Now what we know is epigenetic reality, which means that cells turn on and turn off, genes turn on and turn off, depending on what's in the environment of the cell, the epigenetic response to the cell, and the epigenetic of the cell, what that's responding to is what is released from your brain, the neurochemistry. And what fires off the neurochemistry? Well, everyday things can fire it off, but the neuroconnections, again, we're in neuroscience here, neurons that fire together, wire together. The more that a neuron fires in a particular direction, i.e. I'm a piece of shit, if that keeps firing and you're looping that in your head over and over, then that becomes a neurochemical response. It's not just a connection in your brain. There is a neurochemical cocktail that says, I'm a piece of shit. That is flushed into your body, picked up by the receptors on the cells, and put into the genes. Well, if it's put into the genes, then the genes say, I can be happy and healthy, or I can feel like a piece of shit and walk around depressed, but I've got all this neurochemical, I'm swimming in, I'm a piece of shit. Well, guess what? You act like, you behave like, and you neurochemically and biologically respond that way. So that's your emotional source code. Now, is it permanent? No, it's as permanent and real as your DNA. It can be switched on or switched off, but it can't be switched on or off until you understand that it's there. Because the next level of, well, what keeps it in there? And here's that. So now again, thinking of cells, the content of the cell, you've got the gene in the middle, and around that is the cell wall. What is the cell wall? Because the cell wall allows things in and pushes other things out. The cell wall, using the cells as a metaphor, is the anatomy of meaning. So now we've got the emotional source code at the bottom, and then we've got the anatomy of meaning directly above it, which is the cell wall. What does that mean? It means the meaning you give something is the meaning it has. It means what you believe it to mean is reality. It's not truth. It's just your reality. And so what does it mean that Donald Trump is going to run in 2024? Well, if I ask somebody in a red hat, they're going to have a very different answer to somebody in a blue hat. But if I ask the red hat, where do you get that idea? And I do the emotional source code, I guarantee you I'll find it in their emotional source code from when they were likely under 12, but definitely under 7. But if I ask the person in the blue hat, why do you think he's the devil incarnate? I'll also get to their emotional source code. It's not truth, it's meaning. So the anatomy of the meaning that we've given things is what matters. So if we're going to change the behavior, we have to look at the emotional source code, the meaning we've given it based on the circumstances of our environment. And we only created that meaning for one simple reason, biological, to survive. Out of that meaning, we developed an identity, and we hold into that identity in order to survive. And we build beliefs and values and systems to support that identity. So, of course, I'm a Christian. Of course, I'm a Jew. Of course, I'm a Muslim. Of course, I'm an American. No. That's an identity you've built on top of the anatomy of meaning. And as a result, you've got all these values, you've got the beliefs, and that's just your behavior. And that's what's running our world. That's what's running the world leaders. That's what's running the people who vote for dictators. That's what's running the people who set shit on fire in the streets. And that's what's running the people who are running ministries or whatever else they're doing. They're not good or bad. You can look at them that way, or you can look at them objectively and say, this is an emotional source code response. So when Vladimir Putin invaded the Ukraine, people asked me, leaders, big people came to me and said, we need to understand this. So I wrote the emotional source code of Vladimir Putin. I read enormous amounts of research on him from when he was a boy all the way through. And I wrote this report, the emotional source code of Vladimir Putin. And it allowed people to understand why he does what he does, even if it doesn't make sense. I did the same thing for Donald Trump in 2015 and said, this is why he will win the election. I've done one on the United States of America. What is the emotional source code of the United States of America? I got to that, so I know what drives Americans as a mass. I did it on English people, on England, not on Britain, but on England, what drives them. By understanding that there's a national emotional source code, there's an organizational, so if you have ABC Inc., you've got an emotional source code there. And if you're an individual, and by understanding those, you can change the behaviors, you can change the meaning, and you can get to outcomes that really serve at a much higher level for not just you, but for something much greater.
The architect has spoken. That is so fascinating. Mm-hmm. I am going to go find. Can I go find those articles?
Oh, absolutely. So the emotional source code for Vladimir Putin is actually on my website. It's on dovbaron.com. You can find it on there. It'll explain that to you. It's a downloadable. I boiled it down as simply as I possibly could. It's 5 simple pages. It's easy to read. The one on Trump, I turned into 2 articles. One was called Decoding Donald Trump. And the other one was, I can't remember the name of it because it was 2015. But you can find it. Just put Dov Baron Donald Trump. It'll come up. And there actually are videos on YouTube that I did about them as well.
Okay. Gosh, it's so fascinating. And I love the thought about how all of this really, it is the deeper stuff, right? And I know a lot of us, and I'll even say the way that we treat people medicine wise, it's like we treat those symptoms and we look at the surface level stuff. And
we're a symptomatic society.
We are
we're constantly looking. When I go into a corporation, I say, "What's the problem?" And they tell me, I go, "That's not the problem." And they go, "Oh, yeah, okay. Well, so what's deeper?" So, "Oh, well, it's this." That's not the problem. If you've not gone 5, 6, 7 levels deep, you're not at that yet. You keep treating symptoms, not because you're a bad or because you're stupid, but because you live in a society that's trained you to look for answers at the surface. If you keep cutting the heads off the weeds don't go away. Like we're a symptomatic society. And so, of course, we have an opioid crisis. Of course, we have an economic crisis. Of course, we have a homeless crisis, because we're looking at things all completely wrong. We're looking at the electric system. We're looking at getting rid of petroleum. Oh, God, come on, wake up. You're looking at a symptom. You're looking at a symptom. Do I like electric cars? I do. But, you're going to plug them into a grid that's fallen apart. A grid that is, in the United States, mostly run on gas and oil. okay, well, you're going to plug you feel good because you plugged your electric car into something that requires fossil fuels to run. Yeah, you kind of miss the boat. I still like electric cars, but it's not a solution. We're not looking at the real problem. And that's why, I appreciate you recognizing that when a lot of consultants go into companies, they're trained to respond to a symptom, because the organizer of the company can say, we brought in Charlie Brown and he's the top expert on X, Y, and Z, and he showed us this. And then they come to me 3 years later and go, why didn't he fix? Governments are doing it. Like, we're voting for idiots who, and by the way, I'm not putting that on one side or the other. We're voting for idiots who are talking about symptoms, not talking about problems. Because, and here's the thing, dealing with problems is painful. Dealing with problems is painful, right? You have this gut problem. You've always had this gut problem, and you don't know what it is. So you went to the doctor, and doctor gave you some pills, and you know what? It eased off for a bit, but you can still feel all the discomfort and the swelling, and and you've got zits on your face now, so you get some cream. Another symptom. And then you find out, well, you know what? I gotta stop eating whatever it is, McDonald's. But you live on McDonald's. Well, I'll suffer then, because I'm only going to deal with a symptom. So I'll take more pills and I'll get more cream, as opposed to the problem is your gut is inflamed. Deal with the issue. No, I'd much rather do something else. Well, you could eat right and you could exercise. No, but I'd rather have Botox.
Yeah.
Well, you could eat right and you could exercise. Yeah, but I'd rather have gastric bypass. Okay. We're a symptom-driven society. I'm not judging you for it, but I'm asking you to acknowledge it.
Yes, acknowledge it. And it all stems from this idea of the emotional source code that you've been talking about.
Exactly.
And when we get to the root of that stuff, it's where the gold is found. And it takes effort to dig it out. And it takes effort, and it's dirty and it's messy. But when we find it,
it's diamonds, man. It's so beautiful.
It's where it is. It's where it is.
When I do that work around brands, it's fascinating. It's like, this. You think this is the brand? This is not the brand.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with a plumbing company. Plumbing. I was like so not excited. These people manufacture pipes. They're a national company, but I wasn't particularly excited about it. And then we got to the emotional source code of the organization, and I said, you're not in the plumbing business. And we got to what the emotional source code is, and they were like, the founder of the company was leaving to let partners take over, was like, oh my God, I'm staying. Because he'd gotten to what drove him to start the bloody business.
Yes, that's gold. Dov, man, I wish we had 4 more hours. So next time we come on, you are gonna be on. We're gonna talk about Jungian stuff. We're gonna go there because I want to go there.
Happy to do it.
This is brilliant. I love this so much. If you want, let's point all of my people to your stuff.
Thank you.
So where do they go?
So if you want to find me, obviously you just go to my name, which is Dov, D-O-V, Baron, BARON.com. That's my main website. I write for LinkedIn and I write for Medium. You can find my articles on The Curious Leader on LinkedIn. You can find my articles every Tuesday on LinkedIn. They are more polymathic. So we talk about geopolitics. We talk about leadership. We talk about mental health, all those things. The last one I did was on mental health. The next one that's coming out is on Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the book, The Brave New World, and showing the parallels between where we are today. That's all there. And, you can follow me and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I know I'm crazy, but you can write to me. Dov@dovbaron.com. Yes, that is actually my email, Dov@dovbaron.com. And I'll tell you why. Information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation only comes from the application of the information. So here's what I want you to do. I have a podcast. You can find my podcast on the usual places you find podcasts. But I know what it takes. It takes a lot of bloody work, far more than you can possibly imagine. But it's a stupid system because it's a one-way system. So Scott's here putting out all this time and this effort and finding guests for you and researching and then all the post-production. There's a lot goes into this. And you probably you'd probably enjoy it and appreciate it, but you never let him know. You never did a review. You never rated it on Apple. You never did any of those things. You never shared it with your friends. You hoard the information, and you just walk around thinking, "Oh, I'm looking forward to the next episode." That's great. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to go on to Apple or wherever it is you listen to the podcast, rate, review, subscribe to the show, and share it with your friends. Share the knowledge. And then what I want you to do on top of that is I want you to write to me, dov@dovbaron.com, and I want you to write to Skot, and I want you to tell us what you got out of this episode, and more importantly, what are you going to do with it? Like, I want to know if it's changing your life to hear this, but I want to know how is it changing your life because you're applying it. This is what matters. If I can serve you, I'm here to serve you. And you might go, well, I'm not a world leader. Okay. There are other people I help too. Reach out to me. If I can't serve you, I'll be the first to tell you I can't serve you. But if I can help you, I will do that. But I want you to acknowledge and validate the work that Skot puts into doing this. So please rate, review, subscribe to the show, and share it with your friends.
Best call to action ever.
Thank you.
Ever. Mostly because I didn't give it. So no, that's brilliant, man. Thank you so much. I agree. Application leads to transformation. Information, inspiration is great. Application is what leads to the transformation. I'm so grateful. I echo your sentiments there 100%. Dov, you have been a gift for all of us today. What you've said has been a gift. I hope that people took something from this. There's just the micro, it's just the micro aha. I just want something out of that. But I'm grateful again for you, and, you know, bless you on all your stuff. I think that you've got a lot of people out there yearning to know what you know. And I think that's all you got to do. Giving you a platform to do that has been my honor, and good luck out there.
Well, I'm very grateful for you giving me that platform. It was a pleasure and honor to serve you and your audience, Skot. Thank you for the invitation. I'm sincerely grateful.
The best pharmacy in the world is right between your ears. How can we use our minds? How can we use who we are to solve problems? To find the deeper meaning, the deeper reasoning for who we are, what we want to do, what we should be doing, and taking action to define and to drive the behavior that is going to drive healthy cultures, healthy relationships, and at the end of the day, healthy lives. How do we use that to go deeper? It's more than just the surface level stuff. It is that deepness that we are sometimes afraid to go to, but sometimes we're just too lazy to go there. Sometimes we don't know to go there. Sometimes there's all kinds of reasons why we don't go there. We need to go there. This idea of being knocked down 7 times and then getting up the 8th, it's like, I love his idea. Why are we knocked down the first time? Let's stop for a second, because I think the idea there is that we react. We get knocked down, we jump up back. We get knocked down, we jump back up. We say, this is resilience. Me getting back up every time I get knocked down. Yes, there's something there, but I think there's more to the get knocked down. Wait, let's respond, not react. Let's respond to the thing that just happened, which means we stop, we think about it, we ponder, we gather some information, some data, then we get back up. Okay, we don't stay down, but we need to think about why we're down in the first place and then get back up. Potential. We can have that potential and we can want to share that potential, but let's not manipulate with the idea of potential. Let's use it. I like to use the idea of unlocking your potential, and I want to remove obstacles. I want to help inform you and educate and do all the things that I do in hopes that you will go deeper and discover and kind of unlock and do your own work, working on your potential. That is what we're trying to do here. Deep greatness requires abandoning your identity sometimes. People are like, well, my identity is this and my identity is that, and I don't want to remove that because then who am I? Well, that greatness is more than just what's on the surface. So I want you to take all this knowledge, take all of the things that have been said today and do something with them. I love his, I've never had a guest do my own call to action. So thank you, Dov, for doing that. Take action, people. Without action, there's no transformation. We got to apply it and then we can transform. We got to have more. We got to do more, and we can do it. It's just the micro moments, the micro steps that we need to take in order to make progress. Thanks, Dov, for being here. You're gold. If y'all want to find out more about me, you can go to skotwaldron.com. You can like, subscribe, comment there. Please, like Dov said, you can go to anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please find me there. And last but not least, please refer me to somebody else. Share the show, share the knowledge, share Dov with the world. He's got some brilliant things to say. And I guess that's it. So I will see you next time on another episode of Unlocked.